I yield the floor, Tomiwa.
Um, Hello everyone, good morning. Good morning, everybody.
Good
Hello, can you
morning.
hear me, please?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
good
thank you very
morning.
much.
We are hearing you.
Okay. My name is Amoshebi Oluwatomiwa, and welcome to our online book section. And I'll introduce the books we'll be reading today. First, we are Behind the City Wall, and it was written by Munzali Dantata. Then we have Queen's Visit to Nigeria, which was written by Gboyega Badejo. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce those names very well. And then we have If the Rails Could Speak by Dr. Adebumi Adeola Akimbo. These books give us a flaw on Nigerian history, most especially when you talk about Behind the City Wall and also the Queen's Visit and every other one. It talks about the railway history, also the Queen's Visit to Nigeria, and the history behind it, because most of us had to read it online to get the fascinating story about the Queen's Visit to Nigeria. The royal family has a very big history and also a nice story and background to them. So this gives us the floor to read about them, what they did in Nigeria, and how this has helped us building our own story from what they brought to us. So I'm going to give the floor back to Mr. Kimbo. Thank you.
Thank you, Tomiwa, for that excellent introduction. And if you check the slides, the three books are displayed on the slides. We're having technical glitches with our readers, but we will go on. The show must go on. Like she has, Oluwatomiwa has mentioned, we have Behind the City Wall by Munzali Dantata, Queen's Visit to Nigeria by Gboyega Badejo, and of course, If the Rail Could Speak by Dr. Akimbo. Having noted all of this, we are proud to say we have one and only distinguished lawyer, learned lawyer, turned artistic author and writer. No other person than Munzali Dantata. We welcome you. Your pleasant self has been very, very instructive and into getting some history background about the rail. So please, a round of applause if we can for Munzali Dantata. I just did my own physically. So having said that,
we can use our voice to say welcome to Dantata.
yes, we can. Oga Dantata, please check your mic by unmuting and appreciating the house briefly. Okay. Okay, so if you can hear us, please unmute Munzali Dantata. If you can hear us, please unmute your mic. Okay, so probably we're still getting some technical challenges there, but let's move on to the next on today's agenda. So we're starting with
hello, can you hear me now?
Loud and clear, sir. We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, finally I've got my microphone on. So thank you very much for having me on. I'm very much with you.
Thank you so much for that. Okay, so moving on, we're looking at the sub-theme, which is exploring the tracks of identity, where we talk about people and their different roles in the country. We're talking about heritage, where we talk about culture, the diversity, the strengths. And then we're looking at infrastructure when it comes to the buildings, the roads, especially, and the stories they have left behind. I think before I give the mic to the president of Legacy, I would like to quickly do what we call a brief opening signals. This is where if we were in Jekyll House, you would have had the sound of the train about to move. You hear, pa, pa. But you know, we are not in Jekyll House, we are online. And since we are online, I'll just be giving an opening signals, the departure, introductory remark on the vision of Art Shared Africa, the call to gather, Distinguished guests, historians, artists, and keepers of our collective memory, welcome to this first of its kind book reading session. In the Yoruba language, we often speak of the journey of life. Today, we gather at a very specific intersection where the iron snake of our industrial paths meets the city walls of our ancestral heritage. We aren't just here to look at old maps and dusty locomotives. We are here because a nation that does not know its path back to the station can never truly choose its next destination. The vision of Art Shared Africa. Why Art Shared Africa? Our vision is simple yet profound: to treat our history not as a static museum piece, but as a living, breathing shed, a workshop where identity is repaired, polished, and put back into motion. We believe that the railway tracks running through Nigeria are more than just steel and timber. They are the veins of our shared story. They carry the cocoa of the West, the granite of the North, and the coal of the East. But more importantly, they carried people. They carried ideas, music, fashion, and the very concept of a modern Nigeria. Art Shared Africa exists to ensure those stories aren't buried under the weeds of forgotten station. We use the arts, literature, visual storytelling, and architecture to act as the opening signals for a new generation. The significance of arts and rails, today's program is a journey through time, and it is divided into stations. As we move from the architectural majesty of the North in Munzali Dantata's work, through the diplomatic pageantry of the 1950s, to the silent, gritty labor of the rail workers, I want you to listen to the rhythm. There is a heartbeat in the clack-clack of the rails. It is the heartbeat of the laborer who laid the track. It is the heartbeat of the traveler seeking a better life. Our vision is to amplify the heartbeat through hearts. We want to turn our transit hubs into cultural hubs and our history into a fuel for future creativity. As we prepare to pull out of this station this morning, I ask you to engage deeply. Ask yourself, what did we leave behind at the last station? And what are we carrying in our luggage into the future? The railway didn't just carry passengers, it carried the future. Today, with the help of our esteemed speakers and the support of Legacy 1995 NG, we look back to see exactly where it took us and where we are going next. The signals are green, the steam is rising, and the journey has begun. Thank you and welcome aboard. On that note, I call on the president of Legacy, no other person but the postmaster himself, Taye Olani. You have the floor, sir. Speech.
Thank you very much. I heartily welcome all of us to this very grandiose and unique occasion. Unique in the sense that in Yoruba land, we say that ẹni tí ò bá lọ sí oko bàbá ẹlòmíì á rò pé oko bàbá ònìkan ló tóbi jù ni. The person who has never bothered to go to another person's farm will think that his father's farm is the biggest and the most enriching. When at times God has made manifest the opportunity to meet certain individuals, you will see that there are great minds here in Nigeria, but we and who that we have not bothered to care to know about them. Me, as a fisherman, I've been privileged to catch some fishes, the human fishes, in terms of Dr. Munzali Dantata and Gboyega Badejo. Both of them are coming to read to us the enrichment of their minds, which they have codified in their various books. On behalf of Legacy, we are marking the part of still 30th anniversary of Legacy 1995. And this time around happens to be part of the period when we were privileged to have Her Majesty, the Queen of England, Elizabeth II, visited Nigeria in 1956. So we are partly helping to mark the 70th anniversary of her visit. I've been also privileged to have a number of my relations that attended Queen's colleges or schools. My elder sister in 1957 was one of the pioneer students of Ilorin Queen's School. Our daughter, a doctor, was also privileged to attend that. I have also a niece, a professor of medicine, who also attended that, and a cousin of mine who also, Alimat Benushola, who also attended Queen's School, Ilorin. And my sister's daughter, again, here in Lagos, attended the Queen's School. So catching somebody like Badejo to give a pep on what the Queen's visit to us, as at that time, is something very enigmatic for all of us. And then the city wall, what is behind it? A peep and a glimpse into the city wall will enable us see that many things we have not gotten to know, we can know. The railway has checkered history. It has a very good heritage which we are preserving, which we are trying to restore from the legacy perspective, and this promotion is part and parcel of what we are interested in. I don't want to talk so much because I know I have a limited time, but my joy is being privileged, having come from Ofa, a railway time which socio-cultural and economic development of our people have been so much influenced by the advent of the railway. So let's sit, relax, let's be attentive and enjoy the intellectual charity from these two great minds. You're welcome once again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tayo Lani, President Legacy 1995 NG. Without taking too much of time, each session is going to be treated as a station. We have 3 books. Fortunately, we have 2 readers at the moment in the house. And so we will go ahead to start with the first session. Of course, we have no other choice but to welcome him once again, the writer of the book Behind the City Wall, Munzali Dantata. Over to you, sir. The 10 minutes starts now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Akimbo. I'm honored to be invited for this book reading, and I'm very happy to read my favorite chapter of the book, which is chapter 6, titled Kidaya Chanja, which in Hausa means the music change. And the full Hausa proverb is, when the music change, the dance also change. This is a very popular Hausa proverb, which is very instructive in the case of Africa and Nigeria. The Industrial Revolution was a turning point that changed economics, politics, and societies across the world, beginning in Britain in the late 18th century with the textile industry, which spread across Europe. Mechanized factories, steam-powered transport like the railway, increase productivity, enabling the mass production of goods in an unprecedented scale. The industrial growth brought unprecedented demand for raw material, with the European maritime powers going beyond Europe to Africa in search of raw materials. From the mid-1800s, Britain, France, Germany, Belgium, Spain, and Portugal competed fiercely in what became known as the Scramble for Africa. By 1884, they started what was called the Berlin Conference, where they convened to regulate their activities. I will move on. This now brought the British to Nigeria, and in response to their search for raw materials. They colonized Nigeria, as we all know, from 1900, And one of the first things they did was to set up a railway, which they started creating the Kano to Lagos Railway by 1907, which they completed in 1911. One of the results of that railway was the Masaka Textile Mill, which was established in 1950 by the Kano Citizens Company Limited, which is on page 157 of my book. I would like to say that that was the first modern textile in Nigeria. Before then, the European firms were crushing broad plants to crush cocoa, palm kernel, cotton seeds for as raw material. But this textile mill, which was in Kano, was the first textile, the first textile, and also the first industry that was producing finished goods. And that came about as a result of the railway, because the same merchants that came around, and by the way, it was a private sector initiative, were the same traders who are shipping, supplying groundnuts to the European firms, including UAC, which was the largest of them. And they accumulated their capital and felt that they were not going to continue as just suppliers of raw material. And that was the first attempt, which I captured in my book. It was the first attempt at manufacturing, which was suppressed and not encouraged by the colonial government until 1960. Secondly, I would like to mention that the next textile mill was in 1957 in Kaduna, set up by the Northern Nigerian government. And then by 1960, early 1960, another textile mill came up in Lagos. So the first three textile mills were in Lagos, in Kano, Kaduna, Lagos, which set the tone for industrial Nigeria, which was made possible, as I said, by the railway, because the granite could not have been shipped in large scale if it wasn't for the railway. And the same thing with the cotton that was needed for the factories. So, having said that, I believe I don't know how much time I have in the 10 minutes that I allocated to me to read from my book. Before we now move on to the discussion, which I'll be very glad to take questions, especially from those who have read the book. I would like to ask me any questions from the book. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on time, and thank you so much for buying back 4 minutes for us. We look forward to that particular engagement. The second reader, unfortunately, has not joined us, so I may have to step in to my own portion. However, let me just quickly brief on why this is a balanced story. We talked about the North. We're supposed to move into the East and, look at the beauty of that particular time in history where the Queen visited. Again, in the absence of the author, we will be moving to the third document. And if the House permits me, I will be reading from my own side a particular part of the document, the book, that inspires not just history, but radiates the title itself. If the Rails Could Speak, that is the title of the book. And this is the silent worker, and is dedicated to all the workers who worked during that period in time. Fortunately and coincidentally, this document was inspired by the current Nigerian Railway Corporation's MD, when he mentioned in a visit to the current train that is working at the moment, what we wanted to call the presidential suite. And he said if the rail could speak. And that caught my attention. Now, what would the rail say if it could speak? So I'll read first from the prologue. I am the vein through which the lifeblood of a nation first flowed. Before the asphalt scorched the earth and the rowing lorries claimed the horizon, there was only the silence of the bush and the rhythmic thud of the sledgehammer. They laid me down in 1896, starting at the edge of the Atlantic, where the salt air of Ido eats at the iron. I am a creature of British ambition, forged into the foundries of the north of England, and shipped across the world to be pinned into the red Nigerian soil. To the men in white helmets who mapped my path, I was a strategic asset. To the thousands of laborers who sweet seasoned my slippers, I was the iron serpent. But if you press your ear to my cold, weathered skin, you will hear that I am a storyteller. I remember the first steam from the Hunslet engines, black smoke billowing like a signal fire through the palm fronds of Abeokuta. I found the air tremble as I climbed the plateau towards Jos, carrying the weight of tin and coal, the minerals that fed a distant empire where no new one was born beneath my wheels. I have watched the granite pyramids of Kano rise like golden mountains, only to disappear into my wagons. I have been the bridge between the desert and the sea. I was there in 1914 when the North and the South were stitched together, not just by ink on a treaty, but by the very rails that allowed a trader in Port Harcourt to sell his wares in Kaduna. I have known the glory of the Ebute metal workshops, the symphony of clanging brass and hissing valves. I have also known the long, hollow years of rust, when the wheels grew tall beneath my joints and the station bells at Offa and Mina fell silent, forgotten by a world that had moved to the highways. But I'm waking up. The rust is being scrapped away. New steel, sleek and silent, is being laid along my old bones. The whistle is sounding again from the ground halls of the Mobolaji Johnson station to the dry plains of the north. I am the Nigerian Railway. I have seen the colonial masters depart and the modern giants arrive. I have carried the burden of history for over a century. If the rails could speak, this is what they would tell you. Now, that's the first part of the book, which is the prologue. And because of time, I have 5 minutes more to my time. I will be going to chapter 3 of the book. And I'll be going to chapter 5 of the book, which falls under the part 4, titled The Modern Renaissance, which is 2000 to present time. I'll be reading from chapter 5. The resurrection, my new skin and the return of the hum. I felt the change long before the first spike was driven. If my old narrow gauge ribs felt like a dying heartbeat, the arrival of the standard gauge rail was a total transfusion. The earth beneath me has begun to tremble again, but the rhythm is different, faster, smoother, and heavier. I am staring, shaking off the dust of decades as the silence that once stifled my station is finally broken. The arrival of the silver serpents, modern giants, and blue and white locomotive. My voice changed with the turn of the millennium. For over a century, I spoke in Cape gauge, a narrow colonial dialect designed for economy over speed. But this Renaissance demands a wider tongue, the standard gauge. I do not groan as I once did. My new spine is made of high-tensiled steel, laid upon reinforced concrete sleepers, rather than the rotten wood of my youth. I feel a clinical precision now. Where my old tracks followed the contours of the land like a winding river, these new lines of mine cut through hills and span valleys with unapologetic directness. I now carry Chinese-built locomotives, sleek blue and white giants, gliding across me at speed my pioneers never imagined. The rhythmic click-clack of my old gas is gone. In its place is a continuous high-pitched sing as I defy the friction that once defined the journey. The transformation of my platform is a shock to my system. The goats that once ruled my abandoned waiting rooms have been chased away by the frantic tapping of polished shoes and the roll of suitcases. The silence of my stolen brass bells has been replaced by synthesized chimps and electronic PA systems vibrating through my structure. I watch a new generation of workers. Their uniforms are stiff, their eyes fixed on digital monitors rather than the horizon. They do not remember my ghost years, yet my rusted rails in the sidings watch them with a silent ancestral pride. From the glass and steel hub of Edu to the monumental Mobolaji Johnson Station, my architecture has shifted from colonial utility to modern ambition. So I'm going to use the last 2 minutes of my time to go to chapter, I'm quickly scrolling to go to the closing remarks, which is where the epilogue is, which is a part 5. Part 5 is titled The Internal Reading. And then I go to, like I said, I'm going to the closing remarks. The echo in the still. As the sun sets over the red-tiled roof of JK House, and the evening shadows stretch across the tracks at Ebute Metta, one truth remains. The story of the Nigerian railway is the story of Nigeria itself. We have seen through the pages that if the rails could speak, they would tell of more than just iron and steam. They would tell of the sweat of the Egba laborers, the vision of the early engineers, the bustling commerce of the granite pyramids, and the quiet resilience of a nation that refused to let its heritage rust away. The journey from the first pike in 1896 to the high-speed standard gauge of today has not been a straight line. It has been a rough road marked by steep inclines, long winters of neglect, and a glorious modern renaissance. But through it all, the railway has remained our most enduring bridge, linking the savannah to the sea, the past to the present, and the old Cape gauge memories to the standard gauge dreams. As we celebrate legacy, we do not just look at old locomotives in a museum. We look at a living testament to what happens when a single people value their history by preserving the stories held within the walls of JK House, the old running shed. We ensure that the Iron Serpent continues to inspire the engineers, travelers, and historians of tomorrow. The rails are no longer silent. They are singing again. And as long as they do, the heart of Nigeria will continue to beat in time with the rhythm of the road. I had my session that way, and I want to call on the second speaker if he's back on the platform. If he's on the platform to take the baton from me. Is Gboyega Badejo on the platform? From the look of things, the answer is no. So on that note, you have had 2 books all to yourself, and we move into the interactive session, buying back 10 more minutes to our time. The floor is now open for comments and stories, should you have any. Any comments from the floor? Question?
Hello.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. There is always the adage that there is no art to find mind's construction in the face. And what we have had from, can I say, Munzali Dantata, and these poetic poems and poetry that you have brought up to let us appreciate what we used to say of a past participle and present continuous. I'm sure the Gen Z amongst us will feel very excited that there have been a lot of great works that have been done in the past and which is now being related in the present in order for it to be passed on to the future. I want Dr. Dantata to please talk about that city wall that used to be in Kano, how that thriving city has become more or less a ghost of its glorious past, because of the political trends and terrain and the idea of always giving much more recognition to politics and politicians than people of great minds. So Dantata will please help us to explain what do you really mean by that behind the city wall? Where is the city wall now? And of what importance is it to Kano State and to Nigeria and to heritage-oriented individuals? And for Dr. Akimbo, well, I never knew there is a book of this nature in the offing. But now that we have been able to, I think it's a thing that the Railway Corporation should also, all the three books. Fortunately, we have had the first two books with the MD. I think this one will be added, and we should relate with them to see how that could be circulated throughout their various formations in the country. So first to Dantata, city wall, where is it now? What does it entail? And what do you think the heritage concerned individuals like us in legacy should do to see and get to know about what it is?
Well, thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I would like to mention that a lot of Nigerian cities, that is ancient cities like Benin and other cities, have city walls, some made of mud, some made from some other materials. Almost all the major Hausa cities are circled by mud walls, which protect them from assailants in time of hostilities with another city state, and also from marauding animals. So a lot of cities have city walls, and it may interest you to know that the city wall of Kano was the first to be declared a national monument by the federal government more than 40 years ago. I don't know how many city walls have joined. Unfortunately, most of the city wall has disappeared now with the expansion of the city. But the city was very much standing in the 60s when I was a child. And if I can read from the prologue, I open with the following passage. The granite pyramids, the city wall, and the railway are three enduring relics of Kano from my childhood. The city wall of Kano, as I said, was declared a national monument by the federal government. Kano was a city that was intact. It had industries and it is surrounded by farms, growing cotton, growing granite, and growing other agricultural products that find their way into the city. So the city itself was like one big industry, including leather, which was also an export of Kano City. And in those days, in the pre-colonial days, Kano and states, including Zaria, Katsina, were all trading with North Africa, famously called the Trans-Sahara trade. They brought down their goods across the Sahara, and they went back with the states had to offer, and Kano was the capital, the economic capital that is not political. When the British came and conquered northern Nigeria and declared it as the colony of northern Nigeria, side by side the colony of southern Nigeria, it built the railway. That's the first thing they did. And they now made a U-turn on the economy of the North from looking upwards to North Africa to looking down to Lagos, to the Atlantic. And also from finishing